October 17th, 1952. What started off as a regular clear blue sky day in Oloron-Sainte-Marie in southwestern France soon progressed into something far less regular when at around midday a strange object appeared in the skies. One of the many witnesses was a headmaster of a local school. He was at home, looking out of a window that faced the northern side of town, when he saw something travelling at high speed above a single cloud crossing the sky. He estimated it to have been at an altitude of somewhere between 65 and 98,000 feet, which is roughly between 2 and 3 kilometers. The object was cylinder-shaped, white, and tilted at an angle of around 45 degrees, with the upper part of the cylinder leaning in the direction it was travelling in. In front of the cylinder, and travelling in the same direction, were 30 smaller objects, which looked like balls of smoke. Deciding to get a better look, he picked up his binoculars. The headmaster was able to see that each of the smaller objects had a red inner sphere, enclosed by a yellowish disc, inclined at an angle that hid some of the lower part of the sphere. The smaller UFOs were moving around in groups of 2, making sharp zigzagging motions. One particularly strange detail he noticed was the fact that each pair was also linked by what he described to look like an electric arcing bolt. Another strange observation he made was the smaller objects leaving long trails of a thread-like substance, which would detach and slowly glide towards the Earth. These unusual thread substances draped over the roofs of buildings, treetops, streetlights, and telephone wires. The villagers coined the name, which translates to Threads of the Virgin, which is a name sometimes given to spiderwebs. On close inspection, the villagers said they looked like strands of nylon or finely spun wool. When the people touched them, the threads became gelatinous, then vaporized and vanished. When the story started to spread throughout the region, they were met with excitement and skepticism. Because so many people over such a wide area had witnessed the same UFOs and thread-like substance falling from the sky, this really was a case that was hard to dismiss as a mass hallucination. It was first suggested that the draping threads could have been left by millions of migrating spiders caught up in winds and dropped over the village. This is an entirely possible explanation for the angel hair phenomenon, as seen here in this video shot near Asquith, Canada in 2011. But what remains unexplained are the UFOs that were witnessed by large numbers of people before the threads fell. This leads some people to believe that although similar in appearance, what fell that day was different, since the threads vaporized within a few minutes of landing or being touched, whereas spiderwebs would hold their form when being handled. Intriguingly, the events that took place that day were not just a one-off. On October 27th, just 10 days after, and roughly 140 miles northwest, in a town called Gaillac, around 100 residents, including 2 military police officers, witnessed the same events for themselves. On this occasion, the mass sighting had 20 of the small saucers, but they came much closer to the ground during their zigzag movements, with what was estimated to be a minimum altitude of about 1,300 feet, or almost 400 meters. Also during this incident, the same threads could be seen falling and slowly vanishing long after the cylinder and saucers had passed through the sky. Then there was another case that took place in Évora, Portugal, on the 2nd of November 1959. Following a UFO seen by dozens of people, the same thread-like substances fell to the Earth. Amazingly, it was said to have fallen for around 4 hours. This time, samples of the angel hair were gathered and studied under a microscope, magnified over 120 times. They were shocked at what they saw. The substance appeared to be a mass of small cell-like creatures which had tentacle-like arms around its small circular body with a width of 1 millimeter. While it was between the 2 glass slides, the creatures raised their tentacles slightly in an attempt to prevent themselves from being squashed. This apparent act of self-preservation suggested some level of intelligence, Because of this, they came to assume that it was some kind of living microorganism, but they had no idea what it was. After further inspection, similarities to tentacles of a jellyfish were noticed. This had some people wondering if these were an unknown species picked up by an ocean waterspout, or if they had become attached to a deep-sea dwelling UFO and detached over the town while it was passing over. The samples were then taken to the University of Lisbon, where they were able to be viewed under a much more powerful microscope. This revealed more details of the unknown creature. Its central body was an egg yellow, while the tentacles were bright red. Unfortunately, due to the religious and political climate at the time, further research was hindered. The samples were then destroyed in a fire at the university in 1978, ending the chances of ever finding out what the threads really were, for now at least anyway. It's quite possible we may see another case in the future. Although they might not be connected, similar cases have been reported throughout history, such as in Germany in 1561, Montgomery, USA in 1898, and once more in Portugal in 1917. One other case that stands out took place over Florence, Italy in 1954. It was famously witnessed by players and thousands of football fans as the UFO passed over the Fiorentina stadium, halting play. Again, the angel hair fell across the city. One player and witness was 1954 World Cup star Ardico Magnini. He described what he saw that day in an article published by the BBC in 2014. It was something that looked like an egg that was moving slowly, slowly, slowly. Everyone was looking up, and also there was some glitter coming down from the sky. Silver glitter. Naturally, skeptics dismissed the UFO sighting and said the material that fell from the sky was again just spider webbing. However, a sample of this material was collected and went through spectrographic analysis. It was concluded that it was made up of the elements boron, silicon, calcium, and magnesium. What was interesting about this is that magnesium and calcium are common elements found in living things. Boron and silicon, however, are not so common. With this analysis, the witnesses of the UFO firmly dispute the theory that what they saw was anything natural, and that what fell from the sky was just spiderwebs. Unfortunately, however, the material was destroyed in the process of extracting this data, so no further information could be drawn. One of the last theories suggested that it could be an unknown microscopic species that lives in the upper atmosphere of the Earth. This has some credibility considering a recent NASA theory of life existing in the clouds of Venus. However, it doesn't explain or take into account the UFOs that accompanied the strange threads. Whatever it was that took place in all of these cases, we'll never know for sure, and until something similar occurs again, we'll only have theories and questions.